Welcome to our video series introducing Google Analytics. In this video, we'll explore the Visitors area and its report features. Now, in this video, I'm going to start talking you through the Visitors area of Google Analytics. This is where we really start diving into the details, and as you'll see, the statistics can really be quite overwhelming, because it just presents so much information in so many different ways. Even though the menu here on the left has 4 distinct sections, goals, content, traffic sources, visitors, once you start looking at the information, you'll see that they all overlap, and it can take quite a bit of getting used to. So we'll go through this step by step so you can easily follow along for your own sites. So let's go to the visitors link and the visitors screen. Actually, this is the visitors overview screen, and it's showing you again a visual representation of whatever it is you want to see, whether it's visitors or page views, and for the time period that you choose, so that's pretty straightforward. Now we start getting into more depth. So if we scroll down, and it's actually still pretty straightforward at this point. The number of visitors, the number of absolute unique visitors, and I should stress here that absolute unique visitors are what analytics considers visitors who have never been to your site before. That may not be strictly accurate for a number of technical reasons, and within this number, some of these absolute unique visitors may actually be returning visitors, and analytics may not be aware of that. So that's something to keep in mind. However, it is fairly accurate. Just don't take it as 100% accurate. Anyway, total visitors, what it considers absolute unique visitors, page views, which is pretty self-explanatory. Each time someone views a page, it's a page view. Average page views per visit, average time on site, average bounce rate, new visits. And here you see visitor segmentation. You can break down the report on your visitors by language, network locations, user defined, by browser, operating system, screen color, screen resolution, and so on. You can see that it really starts getting very nitty-gritty. Then map overlay. Then we scroll down a little bit further to the technical profile, and it gives you a quick summary of the browser breakdown. So 64% are viewing in Internet Explorer, 30% from Firefox, just under 4% for Opera, less than 1% in Mozilla, and then Netscape, 0.6%. By connection speed, 33% visited via DSL, 30% were unknown, 30% cable, under 4% dial-up, and just over 2% via T1. So just looking at that, the vast majority of people are on broadband connection, DSL and cable. Unknown isn't particularly helpful, but I'd say it's a pretty safe bet these days that the majority of people are on broadband. Now, if we simply start going down the menu options on the left in turn, you see we're in the Visitors section, and there's effectively a sub-menu. So first of all, Map Overlay. This gives you a visual representation of the information you want to see. So again, you can break it down by visits or page views or whatever you wish, so what you see is really incredibly flexible in analytics. Anyway, the white area means that you have no visitors. So there were no visitors in much of Africa and Asia, vast sections of the world. Whereas if we pay attention to the darker areas, Canada, and you see that when I hold the mouse over it, it goes from the color which was light green to orange to signify that I'm holding the mouse over it. So Canada, 27 visits. United States, 370 visits. Mexico, 2 visits. Brazil, 2 visits. And there are quite a few countries here. Peru, 1 visit. Chile, 1 visit. Argentina, 2 visits. Okay. Now let's have a look in Europe. United Kingdom, 146 visits. Ireland, 4 visits. France, 9 visits. Poland, 2 visits. Russia, 1 visit. Okay, you can see how this works, and there's a little scale showing you that the lighter the green, the fewer the visits. The lightest green is 1 visit, and the darkest green goes up to 370 visits for the United States. Then if we keep scrolling down below the map, it gives you essentially the same information, but in text format. So 836 visits came from 49 countries or territories. And you see that you can even break down the country level by city level, or broaden it to subcontinent, region, or continent. Here you can see that this is an area where these analytics really start overlapping. But also, you can drill down into so much detail so that even on a country or territory level, you can really segment it to really look at everything that's happening on your site in incredible detail. For example, let's click on Screen Color and take a look. Now we're actually breaking down the reporting by screen colors. And actually, we've gotten a bit ahead of ourselves. We've jumped some menu options. So by going to this area here, we've effectively gone to a different part of the Visitors submenu. So let's go back to the country and territories. But before we do that, let's take a quick look at city and see how much information that presents us with. And okay, here's our map again. This time it's broken down by city, so you may find that useful. "836 visits came from 389 different cities." Okay, let's go back to country territory. Actually, usefully, on most screens, you can show more than the default 10 in the list. Here you see it says 1 to 10 of 49. What I often do is show 500, which is the maximum. So this way I can see everything on one screen, which I find useful. So what's it telling us? Visits 836, that's 100% of the total, and again 1.37 page views per visit, average time on site, percentage of new visits, bounce rate. Okay, country/territory. Most visits came from the U.S., and the average for the U.S. is 1.31 page views per visit, with an average time on the site of 1 minute 35 seconds. So you see it's breaking down these statistics now on a per country level. And actually, these statistics can be broken down by almost any criteria that analytics reports on. So you have so much flexibility in the information presented to you. You can see, for example, the percent of new visits per country, the bounce rate per country, and you can sort these lists by clicking here. So now, rather than sorting in descending order, we're sorting in ascending order. So the country with the least number of visits, or tied with many others actually, was Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka, Peru, Chile, and so on. You can do that with any of these columns. For example, I've now sorted it, so I'm showing it by the country with the most pages per visit. So we see not set, I'm not quite sure what happened there, but the most pages per visit was in Rwanda, then South Korea, Japan, and so on. Okay, you can play around with all this detail if you wish. Let's go back to visits to display visits in descending order. Okay, so that's a lot of information, and you have even more flexibility in that you can change the view and have 4 different views. This was grid view or table view. And here's the pie chart view. And this is how the pie chart view looks. And it's all very customizable in the information shown and how it's displayed. So you can see that almost every area of the screen in Analytics is customizable to show you the information in a slightly different way. Okay, the next view. Here it's showing it effectively as a horizontal bar chart. Actually the same information but in a different presentation. Finally, here you can see that you can do comparisons. Compare the site average visits and okay, this number appears here because there isn't room on the right of the screen. But you see that compared to the site average, I'm getting over 2,000% more visits from the United States as compared to the site average. And the United Kingdom, 755% more visits than average. And you can also do it by pages per visit, for example, to display that. Again, against the site average, you see the United States is about minus 4% below the site average, but the UK is about 28% above it. So there's a massive amount of highly customizable information, and you can really delve into this, and I strongly suggest that you play around with all these options and become comfortable with them. And then, once you really become comfortable, you can then just focus on what you need to know and begin ignoring or setting aside all the other multitude of options. But really, you need to play around with it and dive into it so you can work out what you really think you need to know for your site. Lastly, very usefully, if you have an e-commerce site and you're selling anything or doing any kind of goal tracking, go to Goal Conversions. Here you see it breaks down the goal conversions at the per country level, so you can see how in-depth this really gets. It gives you the summary again, 386 visits. The goal is a sale. The site average is 1.91%, so just under 2%. So not fantastic, but that's what it is at the moment. And there are 3 more goals I could potentially set up, but they're not currently set up, so they're not applicable at the moment. So goal conversion rate again, and as an average, the per visit goal value. I'm not going to go into this too much now because we'll be jumping ahead of ourselves. But basically, when you set up goals, you set the goal value. How much is the goal worth to you? I set a value of $20 on this goal as I'm selling something. So I'm selling something for $20. So the goal value is $20. But with the current conversion rate, it's telling me that per visit, each visit is worth 38 cents to me. So if one conversion is worth $20, each visit is currently worth 38 cents. Then you see that it breaks this down by country. So here you see that it gives you conversion rates per country. It's 2.7%, above average for the U.S., and therefore each visitor from the U.S. is worth 54 cents, higher than the average. Of course, it makes sense that visitors from the United States are more likely to spend money than visitors from certain other countries. Then the United Kingdom is next at 2.05% conversion rate, so it's still above average. That means that each visitor to the UK is worth 41 cents at the moment. Next, it's showing Malaysia because it's listed it by visits. If we click here to sort it by sale or conversion, now we're actually seeing the countries that converted the best in descending order. So Rwanda, with only 2 visits, one of them purchased, for a 50% conversion rate. Of course, 2 visits isn't a particularly meaningful statistic. You really have to have a meaningful amount of traffic to get useful statistics, but it's still interesting to see. Therefore, each visit from Rwanda at the moment is worth $10. Singapore is next with 24 visits. Again, not massively statistically useful, but a good conversion rate of 4.17%. Australia is next with 3.03, then the United States and the United Kingdom, and then the rest are all very low on visits and 0% conversions. If we scroll down to the bottom, we'll see they're all at 0, so the list here isn't particularly useful. After the United Kingdom here, they're all at 0%. This isn't very useful, but then 1 0 doesn't count more than any other 0, of course. So that's the map overlay screen, including how much information it presents and how customizable it is and how deeply you can dive into the information, as you can see. As I mentioned, each submenu option isn't really distinct. There's massive overlap here as you really start diving into the numbers and statistics. All you're really doing with all these different presentation options is taking all that data that analytics has and just presenting it in different ways that are meaningful and helpful to you in your website and marketing goals. So as I said, that's the map overlay screen, and as you can see, it gives you a huge amount of information and is very customizable to show you what's going on with your sites, with your visitors, with your conversion goals on a per city, per country, or even per region level.